This is Keybot for macOS. Keybot is a kind of remote control that can type the shortcuts of applications by simply tapping on buttons on iOS device. This is the macOS version. Here I have two columns, applications and shortcuts. The first thing I have to do is to run the iOS version of Keybot so the macOS version of it can communicate with the iOS version. Let's launch Keybot for iOS. Keybot for iOS is now connected to the macOS version. See this green light. I will now define an application and its shortcuts. Let's define shortcuts for text edit. I will define text edit. See that the iOS version now has the title text edit. Okay, I have to define shortcuts for text edit. I will define shortcuts that this application already knows. First one is copy. I define a new shortcut. I call it copy, and I know that its shortcut is Command C. I will define a second shortcut called paste, and its shortcut is Command V. Notice that the iOS version now has two buttons representing each one of these shortcuts. I will define a third shortcut called New File, and the respective shortcut Command N. A fourth one called Open File, and the shortcut for that is Command O. Notice that the iOS version has now four buttons representing these four shortcuts I have defined. I will now open Text Edit. I have this text here. Suppose I want to copy this title to another place. I would normally press Command C or click here on Edit, Copy. But now that I have defined copy as a shortcut on the macOS version of Keybot, I can simply tap the copy button on the iOS version, and now I have the title copied to memory. I will place the cursor at another point and press the second button I have defined, that is paste. See that now I have pasted the text here. The third shortcut, New File, is equivalent to File New, Command N, that will create a new file. I simply select Text Edit and press the third button. Now, a new file. If I would like to open a file that was already created, I can select File, Open, or press the last button I have created. Suppose I would like to define a complex shortcut like this one, for example, Rapid Page, that is equivalent to Shift Command W. I simply selected Keybot, create a fifth shortcut called Wrap to Page, and define it to be Shift Command W. Okay, now I can select Text Edit again. Notice that the iOS version has now 5 buttons, and the last one is Wrap to Page. If I press that button, Wrap to Page is selected. Now you can increase your productivity with Keybot for macOS and iOS, available on the App Store.